St. Peter says, do you want anything? He says, I'd really like to talk to God. I have questions for him. St. Peter says, yeah, a lot of people do. And so guy goes to God, and God says, my son, what question do you have? And he said, who shot JFK? And God says, Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. And the guy says, wow, this conspiracy goes higher than I thought.
Goes all the way to the top.
Right? Isn't that great?
I love that. All right, we're back. The man, the myth, the legend, Chris Mottola himself. I don't know. We haven't introduced ourselves in a while. Would you change how you would introduce yourself since the last time? Have there been any updates in who you are, Chris? Running from the law? I don't know.
I was going to say, despite all the therapy, no, unfortunately. No, I mean, I'm a 40-year political consultant, done campaigns, 7 presidential, 400 campaigns, 14 governors, 12 senators. I don't know. It all kind of like, I have to write it down. And, one of the things about doing this as long as I have, you forget most of the shit you've done, and you'll see something, you'll go, wait a minute, I know what that, it's so, but yeah, but I'm a lifer political hack is probably the easiest way. I want that on my tombstone.
And none of those people's names are on the non-existent Epstein list, I assume, right?
No, I mean, which is kind of fun. Not that I know of anyway.
Have you seen this thing that there's no list according to the government now?
Yeah. And
I love the deliciousness of that fucking lie.
yeah.
I mean, did you see the cabinet meeting with Trump?
Yeah, where he said there's no...
You guys are still talking about this? Yeah, we're still talking about it. Nobody went to prison except for Ghislaine, and how many people were fucking kids over at his house?
Yeah. And what's really interesting is that I'm kind of two minds of it. As you know, I'm the anti-conspiracy theory guy.
Uh-huh.
Just because having worked in politics, I don't think there are enough people who are that smart to have a conspiracy and that ethical not to tell everybody. I'm of the mind that it isn't some far-reaching thing, but that there are people involved that you should probably know about. I also understand that, you've got court cases coming up, and that is important to have that evidence. At the same time as there going to be any kind of reckoning. And again, I tend to think that there are names being withheld and protected, but it's not this kind of, lizard people, wide-ranging kind of Rothschild global kind of pedophile running the world thing either.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. I wasn't even necessarily even thinking about the actual contents themselves. Yeah. I just think it's interesting that Pam Bondi in February said that the list was on her desk, and now they say there is no list.
Yeah. Right.
I think that's a pretty fucking interesting turn of events myself.
Yeah.
I think all the photos of Trump and Epstein together, and then Epstein and Clinton and all of these others, like, I think the thing I find it more interesting is I'm very curious. I'm on Twitter, as you know, begrudgingly. I actually think
Heil, by the way, I guess that's the new greeting for Mecca Hitler, which was it was the greatest thing. Yeah, but anyway, let's go to this because that was fucking fabulous.
I was just going to say, I think this could, I don't think Trump is MAGA anymore. I think he's becoming a neocon. And I think that his base is actually, this could actually be the beginning cracks in a foundation, is the cognitive dissonance that can come from this Epstein list shit. Now, part of me also thinks that, no offense to MAGA people, because we're all just stupid monkeys, I don't know that they're actually going to care enough, but I do think I've seen enough of them now making comments where it's like, I think there could be something there that over time is going to fracture that support.
Yeah, and all movements, it wasn't Saul Alinsky, but it was somebody that said, all movements start as a cause, become a business, and then turn into a grift. And it wasn't Alinsky, but that's pretty good, and some things start out as a grift.
Yeah.
Right. I think the interesting thing about, to me, Epstein is that, like the Me Too scandals, how many people knew and decided to look the other way?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Jesus Christ, even Trump wound up barring Epstein from Mar-a-Lago. And, preservation being a great, moral equalizer or mitigator.
Right.
But like everybody knew who this guy is. And it's like, I get that you go to a party and he's there because he's connected. I get that he facilitates giving millions to labs and he's in the Harvard lab. I kind of get, at a certain, but Harvard had to know. I mean, when Clinton invited him to fucking Chelsea's wedding, you have to know who this fucking guy is. And even after his conviction, George Stephanopoulos goes to fucking dinner at his fucking house. And
Right.
you kind of go like, this is like a child rapist. And it's like, but it's a really good guest list. I mean, at a certain point, there is this kind of, I mean, I don't want to pull I don't do a Norm Macdonald joke. I was going to say it's even worse than what he was done. It wasn't. It was like,
Right.
it was, who was it? Or who was it said that the worst thing about Bill Cosby was the hypocrisy? And Norm Macdonald says, no, I thought it was the rape.
Yeah, who
Right.
was it? It was another comedian, I think. I
Yeah.
don't
Well,
know.
it wasn't Chris Rock, but it was another comedian who said the worst thing about the Bill Cosby is the hypocrisy. And Norm Macdonald goes, oh, I really thought the worst part was the rape. And
Exactly.
so, I don't want to do that kind of thing,
Yeah.
but yeah, but it goes to politics is that, people for a paycheck will look the other way. And, this morning as we're recording this, that Biden's doctor just took the fifth
Mm,
before a committee, which is
interesting.
his
I didn't
right.
see that.
And it doesn't mean he did anything wrong, but you're a fucking medical doctor and you're looking at this guy. And at a certain point, and again, I get it's a big, big plum and it's cool being the White House doctor. But at a certain point, do you say, do I want this guy's fucking finger on the button?
Mm,
And by the way, and that's across, that's across not just in politics, but in culture. Actually, most of our things are going to culture now. But I mean, we talk about culture a lot, but at a certain point, you have to say, no, I want fucking nothing to do with Epstein. Or if I have a list, I am going to release it. Like all these, if for the only reason is that there might be somebody out there who is still a predator and running around.
yeah.
But even more than that, that these people don't understand what kind of institutional damage they are. It's, whether you like Pam Bondi or you liked who was the head of justice or Merrick Garland or not
Mm. Yeah,
Garland,
America.
whoever the fuck it is, it's
Matt
like,
Gates.
yeah, you have to have an institutional integrity or else when the institution really needs to be believed and needs to take a leap of faith, people are going to fuck you. And, they're,
And this is part of what led to Trump that I think people
yeah,
forget, and they blame people. They say, "Oh, it's because they're ignorant or racist." Maybe to a degree, there's some of that among some of the people. But when the system has been rigged for so long, there's actually I think it was how to become a dictator, how to become a tyrant on Netflix. Have you seen that series?
no.
Definitely watch it. It's like a 6-part series, and it's like it gives you a playbook on how to become a tyrant. But one of the things that I've seen repeatedly is like, you don't tell lies to get people to believe them. You tell lies to get people to not know what the truth is. That can be intentional, but to your point, it can also be unintentional in the sense that you, for instance, full transparency, I was raised Catholic, but to me, the Catholic Church destroyed itself so much with being an ongoing criminal enterprise with pedophilia
Mm.
that I don't think they were intentionally trying to get people to lose all faith and belief, but they told so many lies that now there is no truth. And to your point, I agree 100% that these individuals represent a danger to the institutions because of that. I want to go a step further, however, and say, I'm not sure any of it matters. And I don't know that it ever did. I think what matters is to go back to culture is that, and this is what I think I would thank Trump for the most in my own life, is that it has altered my view of reality, especially now as I'm like consuming more Machiavellian stuff and Nietzsche stuff. But nothing really changed. I think you said it best a long time ago in one of our first episodes. The anomaly was the post-war era.
Yeah.
We're back in reality. And the reality is that Romans believed in certain things, but the institutions let them down. But when the right person came along and told them and framed it the way they wanted to be fed it, they still bought into it.
Mhm.
So I think they could have released the list and it could have said that Donald Trump was predator number one. And I don't think that anybody would really care that's a supporter of Donald Trump. They would find a reason to doubt it. They would say that's made up. Same thing on the other side. when Bill Clinton and the Monica Lewinsky shit, if you listen to what really happened there, the women's lib movement turned against Monica Lewinsky, this 22-year-old young woman
Yeah.
who was preyed upon by a grown man who had so much more power than her. And they turned against her and protected him. I don't
Yeah.
think people believe anything they say they believe. They believe from moment to moment. It's your job as a politician, if you want power, to manipulate that. That's
Yeah.
what I think.
The famous, I think it was Gloria Steinem,
Mhm.
wrote a New York Times editorial, or maybe it was Washington Post, and basically the editorial said, "Well, he's really good on women's issues." So basically, the editorial has been, mocked as calling it one free feel.
Right.
Um, you know, and,
That's
and
funny.
again, and again, I don't understand why you shred your credibility like that. If your credibility, I mean, if you're a political hack, I mean, anybody that has survived a long time in the political consulting business, unbeknownst to the public, even though we're a bunch of, immoral whores, hand up, we've all turned down clients and we've all left campaigns or got fired from campaigns, simply because we said no or this is a bad person. And and if it's your job to be a moral spokesperson, like the head of the feminist majority or the head of the Catholic Church, and it's like, why would you shred is the little victory, I'll go back and quote Robert Bolt, Man for All Seasons, what does it profit a man to sell his soul to gain the world? But for whales, Rich, I mean, you sell it for a small office, or you sell it for you sell it for an ambassadorship, and it's like it's not. I don't think it's worth it. And again, I'm at the end, not at the end, but I mean, I'm in my 60s. I'm not going to be tempted by anything big anytime soon.
You
But
say that, but
yeah, I know. But I mean,
have you
and again,
been, did you check out that book, The Machiavellians, I mentioned last time?
no, I ordered it, and it's sitting at home, and
Okay.
it reminds me of another book that I meant to recommend to you. It's called Nicolomo's Smile. Maybe it was published in the late '90s or something. No, in the early 2000s, maybe. Anyway,
Nicolo's Smile,
and basically, it's about how cagey he was, and he knew he was comp. Basically, it's about him.
a biography of Niccolo Machiavelli.
Yeah, and basically how smart he was, but he also made a calculation that he was going to wind up doing unethical things for a greater good. And the book tries to make the case that there's a greater good and that he was holding back people's worst instincts. And it's interesting. I mean, who the fuck knows?
Well, this is the interesting thing about what you're saying. So you say, we've all turned down. This is an honest to God question, and
Yeah.
it's not alluding to anything. But like, do you think that those jobs get turned down because the person is a bad person and they can't win, and there's not enough value upside to offset it, or this would be a really great, this person is going to win even without me. It's a highly lucrative thing, but they're a bad person. Do you think what's your experience been?
Uh,
Not
so,
your person, but like in the
well, I
industry.
can tell you personal, and I won't use the name because it's like being a tell-all. But there
Yeah.
was a notorious bad person, U.S. Senator, Republican, and they were looking to hire a new consultant very late in the game. It was pretty clear he was going to win. And and basically they were going to hire somebody for September and October, and you were going to mail it in and probably make anywhere from, this is in the night, so you're probably going to pull down for those 2 months work like 150, 300 grand. Real fucking money for not a lot of work and just kind of being along
Yeah.
for the ride.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
and, I won't say I didn't think about it. I mean, fuck. I mean, that's real money. I mean, that's somebody's college education.
Right.
Um, you
Right.
know, um, but ultimately you don't do it. And, and a lot, I mean, I wasn't the only person. And they actually wound up hiring a very good consultant who rationalized it by saying, look, if I don't do this, and if this guy's not there, it's going to be a Democrat, which is worse for the country as a whole. So you can rationalize it like that. And again, you can rationalize anything, but
That's 100% what I think, Chris. I
yeah,
think we live in a world. I mean, kudos to you. I don't know that I would have been strong enough to do that, but like, I think we live in a place where people know what they're going to do and they work backwards and
yeah,
they figure out the justification. And it's, oh, a Democrat's horrible. honestly, if it's a moral, decent Democrat, how is that worse? You
Yeah,
explain to me how that's worse. You can beat them in the next go round. You know what I mean? But
yeah.
like, so I just think it's interesting.
Well,
I can become very philosophical about
yeah,
it,
I
but
mean, one of the great examples of it was 97. Edwin Edwards was running for governor of Louisiana, and he was convicted, and he was an absolute crook. And also, he would not have survived Me Too. But he was running against David Duke, who was the fucking head of the Klan. And it became a nonpartisan thing for Republicans. Even the Bush White House wound up supporting Edwin Edwards,
right.
and there were bumper stickers that said, "Vote for the crook. It's important." And of course, by the way, one of the great lines, my favorite lines in American politics, is that Edwin Edwards was absolutely charming and like,
I think he had been governor before too,
yeah,
not
yeah,
consecutively, I think, as well, right?
yeah. And one of the great lines he said during the campaign was, he said, "I'm not going to talk about my opponent, but let's just say I've been called a wizard under the sheets too." And it's like,
God, you gotta love that.
how the fuck do you not? I mean, like, how do you not go? Okay, right, you got me.
Got my vote. Keep
But by the way,
stealing from the treasury.
speaking of things that haven't coalesced around a common enemy, the Mondami thing.
Right.
It's kind of like the Special Olympics of politics.
Yeah.
And Adams and Cuomo neither want to drop out. And, now they're talking about a third party person. And then the former Democrat lieutenant governor and a Republican power broker is holding press conferences and say maybe there's a write-in. And there have been a series of all these really, frankly, I think they're anti-Semitic, but okay, horrible things about Mondami. And then, clearly he tried to game racial preferences to get in Columbia. And by the way, my only thought was like, how fucking bad must his SATs been that like you're going in 2014 or 2011, whatever it was, as a minority, and your fucking old man is a professor there and you still
Right.
couldn't get in?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
and
Where's he
my
from? Is he
SATs were
Iranian?
notoriously my SATs were so bad, by the way. I got, Chris, you should think about learning a trade, which I should have, by the way, but that's a different story itself.
Hey, you developed your own trade.
Yeah.
Is he Iranian?
No,
What's
no,
Mamdami?
he's actually from Uganda.
Is that
He's
natively
in
you got it?
like Southeast Asian. He's
Like
Asian. He's
Indian or
Indian.
something,
He's
right? Yeah.
basically Indian, but but it's a complicated.
A lot of Indians in Africa, actually.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Actually, by the way, and why I know this, a fair amount of there are conservative Orthodox Jewish sects in Uganda, in the
Yeah.
middle, literally in the middle of like in the fucking bush, in the middle of nowhere. There are these Orthodox Jewish sects.
Were those the ones that tried to take advantage of the right to return to Israel and Israelis didn't want them or something?
I don't know. I don't know. It's a really interesting book.
They like took their kids away. Anyway, I don't know. Could be.
It's a really interesting book because they're all like they look like like they look like an African tribe out of like a nice
Right.
RKO movie.
Right. Right.
But they have all this Jewish tradition and
Do they have the little the curls?
versions of it,
That's awesome.
but their I'll say their music is this combination of like this African rhythm and like the stuff a Jewish cantor would do. And there's actually an album of it that won a Grammy years ago.
Wow.
But it's really interesting. There's a book called It's called Abu Yudaya, and a photographer friend of mine named Richard Sobel did the book, and it's kind of fat. Hold on, I'm getting coffee. I'm dying.
Sure. Sure. Yeah.
Apologies.
Aba Udaya, a Jewish community in eastern Uganda,
There you
primarily
go.
near the town of Mbale.
Yeah, I mean, but it's a wild story, but interesting stuff.
It means people of Judah.
Yeah. But by the way,
How did that happen? I'm curious. Like,
it's been a while. It's been years since I've read the book,
yeah.
and it was literally some kind of a missionary thing.
Huh.
And everybody went.
They went to Israel, or Israelis went on mission, or not
Israelis
Israel, but
went to
like
some kind of a
Jews
mission
or
there, and
somebody.
they
Yeah.
wound up there, and they went okay, and because the tribe is so isolated, or was so isolated, it just kind of existed within the tribal structure.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. By the way, so speaking of conspiracy theories, I have downloaded, but I have not read the Ratcliffe new thing on Russia and him pointing the fingers at Clapper, Brennan, and Comey. And it's pretty, I got to read it, but Comey just seems like a dope along for the ride in the thing. But Brennan seems like if it's true, or if it is true, or if it is, nuance is everything in these things. But it's pretty clear that he ginned this up and shopped it around.
Are you talking about the Russia? What are we talking about?
The
The
2016 stuff.
This is what I don't understand. I think something like 50 something people have been prosecuted in
Yeah,
that Now, I don't know that any of them have been, certainly nobody, well, actually, that's not even true. One of which was convicted, and that was Paul Manafort, that
yeah,
was generated from that investigation. And then the other guy, Yanakakis or whatever his
yeah,
name is or whatever, he took a plea deal, right?
yeah,
And Carter Page, I guess, won or something. He was able to get the charges
yeah.
dropped against him or something. And then something like 50 foreign nationals have been charged in absentia and convicted, maybe even in absentia. So I don't understand how we're still on the idea that this was a hoax, considering that to me, the hoax is, and I'm just going to lay it
Yeah.
all out there where I am, because I read in the book Crime and Progress all about it, and could be some true, some not true. But the facts as are stipulated are that Kushner, Don Jr., Paul Manafort, maybe somebody else, but I know those three were in a meeting with a known Russian agent, shopping the idea or looking for dirt on Hillary. Trump was very open about it. There was the hack and then the release, all well timed. I don't see that it was a hoax. I think the hoax is that Bob Mueller is a fucking moron because he refused to do a counterintelligence investigation, and it was all like a straight criminal investigation. And he said you couldn't charge the three that were in that meeting with the Russian agent because they didn't know that they were part of this illegal scheme. And everybody who's not a fucking moron knows that ignorance of the law is not a defense.
Right.
So I think, if anything, the power structure has been protecting Donald Trump and the Trump campaign of 2016. And I don't see it as a hoax. So that's me laying out my understanding
Yeah.
of it. What is this saying that's different than that would alter my view of that?
The and most of the like the indictments of people not in the country and
Okay.
the IR, and that's not uncommon. When Clinton had the fundraising scandal in 96, 97,
The Chinese, right? Or
the
something?
Chinese,
Yeah.
they indicted like 72 people and 50 fled the country as opposed to test. So the what this says is that there was a meeting and circumstantial stuff, but what Brennan did is that Brennan then took that, shopped it, and it's around, and all the intelligence agencies had it, and most of them said, "Nah, there's not. They shouldn't have done it, but there's nothing really here,
Mm.
or there's not enough here." Brennan then took it and shopped it to a bunch of alphabet agencies that he could control, that said there was something. But then he had to get Comey on, and because Comey was apparently, they knew they had forged the FISA document in order to spy. Comey said, and he said, "We will make this part of the deal." And Comey said, "Sure, great." Because at first Comey said, "No, there's not enough there." And Brennan apparently goes back to him and says, "Well, you've signed this FISA thing." And so he did it to get cover.
Mm.
And it's not that stuff didn't happen, is that there was just it was made bigger than it should have been, probably, that there wasn't any, like the Russians didn't manipulate the election. The Russians didn't steal votes. The Russians didn't do all the kind of crazy lawsuit stuff the courts have thrown out for lack of evidence. I mean, and they got Manafort for tax evasion. They got him on Capone.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean that Cabone didn't actually commit other crimes.
No,
That's
no,
just
but I
the only
mean,
thing they could get him on.
but honestly, I mean, again, Manafort, I know I've worked with him on stuff, not, in the early 90s.
Mm-hmm. So do you buy that he would have been involved in something like that? Actually, that might not be fair to ask you. Do you think that the charges were brought unfairly against Manafort initially?
No, but it became pretty clear that there wasn't a whole lot of there.
Okay.
It was a hand slap, not a jail conviction. And when they couldn't get him on the Russian thing, they got him on the tax thing.
Sure. Okay.
And and so if you think he's Al Capone, then sure, you get him any way you want. But if he just thought he was a guy grifting his way and trying to make a deal,
Yeah.
then I think it becomes, something else.
I think that's fair. I mean, I'm not saying, well, I'm not even saying that
Yeah.
the attempt at 2016 was effective. I mean, you can certainly attempt to commit a crime and not be successful
Right.
in it. Lots of bank
That doesn't
robbers.
make it any less
Yeah.
a crime.
Right, right, right. Also, to go back to Clinton, I personally don't know enough. I was in high school when that
Right.
happened. However, if the facts were similar,
Hmm.
I would say the same thing about the Clintons. Fuck them. They should go to prison if they committed a crime too. I'm not partisan on this. I'm just everything that I've read, and I've read books by the
Hmm.
people that were involved from Fusion 360 or whatever that thing was. They wrote
Yeah.
Crime in Progress. According to that book, the real leader of it was John McCain. So at a security conference in Europe, Christopher Steele, I believe,
Yes.
knew John McCain's chief of staff and said to him, there's something concerning
Hmm.
here, and but you can't share it, like, but you should know. He took it and they broke the deal. They went public. John McCain led that, according to the book. I'm not saying Brendan didn't, but he had a huge part in it, right?
Yeah, kind of. And Brennan is in the middle of it, and nobody wanted to include the Steele dossier because Steele, who is works for Harvey Weinstein,
Right.
that's who this guy is.
Yeah.
When
Former
you go through the
MI6 or MI5 or something.
yeah, when you go, but he's kind of a tabloid Hollywood
Yeah.
fixer corrupter dude. He's not like a real guy. Oh, he's a real
Yeah.
guy, but I saw a very early version of that in some iteration because I was working on the Rubio Super PAC, and all kinds of shit comes across your
Yeah.
desk, and you look at it and you kind of went, This is pre P tape, this is pre all that stuff," and you look at it and it was kind of a half-assed piece of research. They gave it to McCain because if I had gotten that with that material in it, I would have given it to the FBI too.
Mm.
Because what the fuck do I know, right? I
Right,
mean,
right,
it
right.
looks pretty good. The FBI and I think it was also the CIA. This is in the new Radcliffe thing. Looked at it and said, "This is bullshit, and it's all hearsay based on one guy
Mhm.
who we know is a bullshit artist." Is basically what it came down to. So we don't have a lot of faith in it.
Okay.
Um, and there was a whole Facebook Cambridge Analytical thing that became, which you go
Yeah.
back and if you look at the testimony, look at the hearings, they're fucking hysterical. If you work in this in a business, if you work in, the political consulting business, because, the assumption was that, somehow the Russians and Cambridge Analytica figured out how to leverage 75 grand in a $2.5 billion election. Somehow they figured out how to leverage 75 grand in Facebook ads, which is or 100 grand Facebook ads. But the best part is that you can actually find, or could as of a year or two ago, pre-Meta, when it became Meta, Facebook has a political ad archive.
Mhm.
It takes a little doing to get there, but basically you can go in and you can see every fucking political ad that Facebook has run. And you look at the Russian stuff. I have it. I used it for a piece of my course. And you look at it and you kind of go like, I mean, the hardest hitting one was a picture of Satan arm wrestling with Jesus. And it had, if Satan wins, Hillary wins. And you kind of go, anybody, and again, I guess that would persuade somebody. It's not this sophisticated algorithmic kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
It was basically looks like kids fucking around. By the way, I will send you back when I was working with Bush 2000. One of the things that was assembled was this 6 minute Al Gore thing that's all about the Chinese fundraising
Mm.
and what we used to do. It's a really interesting piece. What we used to do is we used to focus group it, and it's like 6 or 8 minutes, and it's all news reports. That's
Uh-huh.
all it is, and they're all butted together.
Yeah.
And we used to play it for focus groups on dial groups and see what they responded to, because part of the thing was that Al doesn't always tell the truth or he's got a prevarication problem.
Mm.
But what was really believable, what crossed the line from your typical politician's bullshit is really what we wanted to
Mm.
find out.
Mhm.
But I'll send it to you because it has the whole scandal thing. And I guess it was, I don't know, about a month ago, I was archiving some shit off and
Yeah.
I hadn't seen it in 20 years. And I looked at it and I was like,
Wow. That's cool.
but
That's
I'll send it to
awesome.
you. It's fun. It's
Yeah,
a
please.
fun piece.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. here's the thing, I guess, about conspiracy theories or even the reality of it. Okay. 9/11, I don't know, there's some questions. The Russia hoax, there's some questions. Vladimir Putin blowing up his own building so that he can become the
I
prime
believe it.
minister. Well, that's the thing about interesting conspiracy theories. I believe it too. Not only do I believe it, I think the facts actually demonstrate that
Yeah.
that's what happened. But other people look at 9/11 and they're like, what about World Trade Center number 7? And I'm like, well, you're a conspiracy theorist with a tin hat. You think America blew up our own buildings. But then you're like, well, yeah, why did 7 come down? And other countries are like, it's obvious. And then I look at Moscow and Putin in 2000. I'm like, it's obvious. Here's what I know, or here's what I believe. And it's all in that Machiavelli shit. Nobody cares. They want to move on, they want certainty. So there's a line in there where, and it might not actually be from the prince, it might be from Libby, but he's something like, if you're going to do bad shit, do it all at once and go overboard, like go to the farthest extreme that you have to go, and then stop and go back, like, and lighten up. Don't slowly small cuts here and there, right? So, and the reason is because as humans, or at least that I deduce from what he said, is that in the moment, I'm sure every Russian was like, once that news came out about the FSB agents planting the fucking bombs, they were like, oh God, they're doing this to us. But then once they were like, let's go destroy Chechnya, we have a new president, yada, 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 they're like, okay, well, I guess that never happened. Like, we don't want that to be the reality. So I don't think it matters anymore. I think we shouldn't even, regardless of what I think about the Russia hoax of 2016, we are where we are now. He's a
Yeah.
two-term president. Like, it is where it is. We have bigger fish to fry.
Yeah. By the way, the best anti 9/11 conspiracy is, if you believe it or not, is popular mechanics.
I saw they did the whole thing, right?
Yeah. By the way, but my favorite conspiracy joke is guy dies and he goes to heaven, and St. Peter says, do you want anything? He says, I'd really like to talk to God. I have questions for him. St. Peter says, yeah, a lot of people do. And so guy goes to God, and God says, my son, what question do you have? And he said, who shot JFK? And God says, Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. And the guy says, wow, this conspiracy goes higher than I thought.
Goes all the way to the top.
Right?
I love that. I mean, yeah, exactly. It's like any other belief. What's the old saying? Like, for a believer, no explanation is necessary, and for a non-believer, no explanation is ever enough.
Yeah. Yeah. I
It's
mean,
the
a
same
certain,
thing.
I think the word I've been struggling with to find is faith. At a certain point, you have faith, you know,
Yeah, exactly.
you
Yeah.
know,
All right. So Trump is perhaps a bit exonerated in this new Ratcliffe stuff. Maybe none of that was ever real.
maybe,
I
maybe not.
think Epstein list is certainly behind him now. I think those questions are going to fade away. It looks like Israel, Iran is reaching some sort of stabilization. He is, however, ramping up a bit more in Ukraine recently. So he's taken a stronger tone, at least, towards Putin. Is he having a moment? Is he the most, and he got the big, beautiful bill passed. And they had their 4th of July celebration and signing.
Yeah.
It's kind of in a victory moment, isn't he?
Yeah. And, whether he's capable of taking the victory lap is a different story. And
You mean
guys,
the tariffs?
well, like Nixon kind of destroys himself by not taking the victory lap. I mean, you do Russia, China, and Alphabet's creation of that, and then you have this kind of, you're so paranoid, you wind up taking down your presidency and your legacy. But on the Iran thing, I always think of Curtis LeMay, who was a very controversial general during World War II, who favored saturation bombing and bombing civilians. Basically, he's famous for saying, if we don't win this, we're all going to be war criminals. But his famous line about bombing was, well, if you bomb people long enough, they stop fighting. And
Yeah.
and I think that is kind of certainly how I see Iran right now. But no, I mean, Trump is. I mean, nobody talks about the price of eggs anymore.
Right.
And you can think it's all happenstance, and he happened to get lucky in the moment, and the shit was going to happen anyway.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter, because if it happens when you're president, you get the credit. Just
That's
like
right.
if bad shit happens when you're president, you get the blame. I mean, that's the fucking job.
Right.
But no, I think he's definitely having a moment, and what's going to be funny is that if he does get Iran and Israel to sign a peace treaty, if they slowly choke Hamas out, and if that war ends, and if he negotiates some kind of peace with Russia and the Ukraine, it's like them not giving him the Nobel Peace Prize is like almost they have to.
Yeah.
You
Otherwise,
know?
it makes that whole prize pointless.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably pointless anyway. But
Yeah.
the but the idea of him going to fucking Sweden and getting the Nobel Peace Prize, how fucking hysterical is that going to be?
I think it's awesome. I
Right?
think
I
it.
mean,
Yeah.
and I think in a lot of ways the most American thing ever, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's interesting. But I want to get back to Mondami again, real
Yeah.
quick.
I meant. Yeah.
Because what's interesting about him is he's clearly caught the moment and he's caught everybody's imagination. And it kind of goes to, and he's absolutely charming and he's great on camera. The kind of conspiracy stuff about what he's doing, both from journalists and Republicans and general politicos, it's kind of funny that he's using special filters and the way he tilts his head. And you kind of go like, what the fuck are you talking about? They're making up this like myth thing, like they did with like the Trump people did after 2016, talking, and Cambridge Analytica did about, no, we're responsible for Brexit, we're responsible for Trump. No, you weren't. The Clinton people, Sasha Eisenberg's book, which is very good by the way, the Victory Lab, that
Mm.
how the Obama people created this technological force that is never going to be duplicated, and it was mostly kind of simple shit. That was just kind of the evolution of technology that everybody does. So he's in that moment, and like every Republican dude tried to be Trump in 2018. All these guys are going to try to be Mamdani now, and
Yeah.
and you look at like what he's running on. It's all affordability, and every fucking thing he's saying is an 80-20 question.
Right.
Do you want lower price groceries? Yes. Do you want free shit? Yes. Do you want free? Of course I fucking do. It's like,
Right.
I'm
Right.
for the higher priced groceries,
Yeah.
increased bus fare. But,
Right.
I mean,
So what you're saying, I think, is kind of that nothing has ever changed in politics. Only the method of getting it out there.
yeah,
Everybody said the same thing from the beginning of time. We've talked about it before, Storm Before the Storm. They talk
yeah,
about how they did the grain subsidies
yeah,
and they could never get rid of it after they first put it in.
right,
They had to keep extending it and making
right,
it more and more of a subsidy.
right. I mean, and everybody in 2006, 2008, was railing against about the Bush tax cuts.
Right.
And, Obama continued them. I mean, Biden continued the Trump or pieces of the Trump tax cuts. And it's like, you're not getting rid of them. I mean, you're not doing that. It's the grain subsidies. And it's,
But this is also like the bad thing about it is that I do think that most of the tax cuts we've had over the last 25 years have been very irresponsible. And, but politically, you can't get rid of them because you can't tell people hard truths. You wouldn't get elected that way.
yeah, and I think that I was making this case is that I know a bunch of Democrats who are, well, I'm getting on Social Security and I don't have to pay tax on that. And
Mm,
that's great. And I'm going to get a SALT refund
mm,
and I'm great for that. So I want to give Trump credit where credit's due.
mm.
And so literally they're buying off people, which
Yeah,
is kind of what and again, buying off people with tax credits is nothing more than buying off people with jobs programs or subsidies or it's other people's money, but I kind of made the case, and like tax cuts are great if you are in a place where your main income is salary. Once you reach a certain point, your income and your wealth is stock market.
right,
And so the only thing you care about is how's it affecting the stock market. I mean,
right.
and I remember people, talking about the end of Social Security in 2005 when Bush had an idea to privatize a piece of it,
Yeah,
that you would have the option of either investing in Social Security or taking a piece of it and investing in the stock market. And if you
right,
look at what that would be worth now, it'd be worth roughly 10 times or 8 times what your Social Security's worth,
right.
and you'd be much better well off. Now, if you had a cash out in 2008, you were fucked.
Hmm.
But the idea that, that stock market being a wealth building thing. But I thought it was interesting is that that's what it helps.
Yeah, I see that. To the Mamdani thing. You know what I think is most interesting about that situation? To your point, all it's like actually Democrats are coming out of the woodwork to beat another Democrat. Every action they're taking is feels very much 2015, 16 against Bernie Sanders,
Yeah.
which was exactly why they got their asses handed to them by Trump.
Hmm.
I feel like they haven't learned any lessons, to be honest with you. And maybe the very best thing that the Democrats could do actually is embrace that populist side of them. Listen, do I think Mamdani has good ideas? No, I think most of them are kind of fucking pie in the sky, never going to
Hmm.
happen. They're good to get elected potentially,
Yeah.
but the Mamdani AOC version of a Democrat is more palatable to Democrats than the alternative of no matter who you put out there, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, Hakeem Jeffries.
Yeah.
Nobody likes them except for the small group who value minority status or they value a certain way of speaking or a certain way of doing things. But the ones who are day to day, they value the AOCs and the Mamdanis. They feel like that's somebody who doesn't give a shit and understands that it's these people are taking from us and that we should take back. And embracing that, I think, is their key to their path to victory.
Yeah, and I think it's more pronounced in Democrats than Trump was in Republicans. I mean, Trump
Definitely.
basically looked at the 2016 Republican primary or the 2014. He took a look at it and he went, "I can fucking beat this because these people just don't get it." And and he went in and he got a plurality in the primaries, but he saw that it was a hollowed out shell and
Yeah.
that their voters fucking hated him.
Yeah.
And the same thing with Jeffrey Schumer, you know types, their fucking voters hate them,
Yeah.
and it will be interesting. And the Cuomo thing, it was, I got to go back and look at it, but basically the Cuomo thing was, they spent more money. It was apparently a fair amount of Bloomberg money,
Hmm.
what I reckon. Um, but you kind of, the whole thing was so old and tired. And it
Yeah.
was like, you're going to drag out this fucking rotting corpse Gorgon again. But the whole campaign seemed tired. And Mandami, it's like you kind of go like, sure, why not? It's like I know
Yeah.
this guy's an asshole. Let me
Yeah.
try something new. And
100%.
the ability to do new is really underrated in politics.
That's I think the biggest benefit of Trump in the American system is that it has been basically a kill shot to straight up mercy kill the dead, rotting system of the party structures that were already. It forced a reckoning that
Enema.
I think
It
we're
was an
still in the
enema.
mini. Forced an enema that I think we're still reckoning with.
Yeah,
And I think the Democrats are. They're like the dinosaurs that aren't paying attention to the asteroid. To be honest with you,
yeah, and they still try. By the way, I think like Bill Clinton gets it actually.
Mm.
You
I
know,
haven't heard him talk on it.
yeah. I mean, just you hear him talk. He doesn't do a lot of stuff. But when you hear him talk, you kind of go, he gets it. And by the way, it's not surprising that he gets it because he's the only guy that's won a fucking election. And it was like,
In a
wow. I mean,
long time.
I get Biden won in 2020,
Yeah.
COVID asterisk, Trump.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's like if you're only going to win when there is a worldwide pandemic that kills 14 million people, you probably need a different strategy.
Yeah.
But you see all these people talking, and even people talking on TV.
Mm.
When I was starting out in the political consulting business, to me and the younger people of my age, of my group, my peer group, we used to lose our fucking minds and get furious when we used to see people on TV, it had Republican strategists, this like that. And you're kind of like going, what fucking campaigns did they do? They don't, um, it's like a
They did
job.
all the losing campaigns, Chris.
Yeah, well, no, you just call yourself that because that's what you are. You had some kind of like, I was
Yeah.
assistant press secretary to Bob Dole or something, and now you're a
Right,
Republican
right,
strategist, and you're like, no, you're not. You're a strategist if you're doing strategy for campaigns. If not,
right,
you're a talking head. And
right.
there was this weird bifurcation, which has since kind of evaporated now because talking heads on TV with consultants are kind of ubiquitous. But it was like are you a TV consultant or a real consultant? And
Huh.
it was really this kind of like you would go to seminars or conferences or something, and there was definitely this kind of class warfare going on that the Hatfields wouldn't talk to the McCoys,
Nice.
which is kind of interesting. But yeah, I agree. Mandami is going to be. I think he is. I think he wins simply because I don't think that the Adams. I think Adams could win. He would need a hostile takeover of his campaign. It would have to be well funded. You can do it. I think you can do it. I think it would be a blast to do, but I don't get the sense that there was enough momentum for that to happen,
Hmm.
you know?
I have to ask you one
Yeah.
thing before we go. I think it was the last episode or the episode before I was telling you about the protests in Mexico, all of the Central American migrants that were coming in. I saw recently there are protests in Mexico City that are actually advocating for violence towards American expats because of the increase in prices, and they're taking all the housing. I just think that's so just fucking delicious, by the way. But have you seen this? And do you think that is this the moment of basically are we retreating into our shells and not wanting immigration all over the world? I think
Yeah,
is that where we are right now?
I think so. And I think that I think the reason for it is because our world is changing exponentially fast with technology and news and information. And I think that there is something basic in human beings that says, wait, fucking stop. I want to keep my shit the way it is. Even for a short time, you need to give me a breath.
Yeah.
I am not surprised. I did not see it. I'm not surprised at the Mexican thing. I was down for somebody's birthday party, for a birthday party in Mexico in one of the resort towns, one of the little towns that has since been expatted in.
Yeah.
And it's very nice. It's very quaint. And I was so uncomfortable in it because it's a bunch of, upper middle class white Americans, and all the staff and all the support are the locals who are being quaint,
Mm.
and it unnerved me. I mean, maybe I shouldn't read, you know, eh,
Yeah, that's not comfortable.
no, and simply because it was like this isn't fucking Disney World. This was somebody's town. And
Yeah.
I get that there's wealth and now there's jobs and there's income. And I totally get that. But I certainly wasn't comfortable with it. And if I read tomorrow that there were riots and 20 Americans were fucking slaughtered over their ceviche, I would say, yeah, I could see that coming. But the idea
Got it.
of and again, I guess money's good, right? But the idea of like you go to an impoverished city and you pay people wages that you wouldn't pay an American, which would be substantial for down there, but you're still paying them,
Totally.
and that there's not a fucking resentment.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
I could feel it. I mean, and so
You're self-aware.
yeah, it's just not comfortable. I mean, it's one thing to go to a tourist place. It's one thing if you're going to go to Paris and or you're going to go
Right.
to Ischia in Italy or something. I get it. That's kind of what it is. But this felt different. This felt like gentrification, colonialism. You know,
Yeah.
I felt like a fucking conquistador down there.
Ugh.
You know,
Yeah. Fuck that.
yeah.
Um, all right. For the next week, what's the big news going to be? What do you think is going to happen on it? Is there going to be peace in Ukraine?
No, I think there's going to be a terrorist attack somewhere.
Oh, shit. You've been right a couple of times.
Yeah.
So that kind of scares me,
Yeah.
actually.
And the only reason I say that is because things have kind of settled down,
Yeah.
being a relative term in the Ukraine and the Middle East.
Yeah.
And I think that there's always a third party group willing to set off a bomb or
Stir some shit up.
kill a bunch of kids. And so that will be my unfortunate prediction for next week. Hopefully I won't be wrong again.
Okay. All right. Let's hope you're wrong this time. And I'll see you in a week, my friend.
Sounds good, man.
Cheers.